Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. Coach, what are some of the standards, pillars of your program?
You know, we have, looking at before we spoke, just kind of get my mind kind of wrapped around. We put together something we call, it's a culture pie, and it kind of encompasses, we have, beginning of the season, we have a first team meeting. We let our players, we have a couple usually captains, leaders. I don't necessarily assign captains, but we have guys who I feel like we can trust with these ideas to communicate with the team. And they kind of, there's 5 of them. And they're not going to be different for most, but one's mentality. And it's the idea of just, we want to gas out, and we want to, it's something that you'll hear a ton in our program, is the idea of operating with urgency. A big word in our program is urgency. Is I'm going to coach you with urgency. We're gonna move from station to station, or from lift to lift, from drill to drill with urgency. And we're gonna, if we're running on the baseball field, if we're in the weight room, if we're whatever, we're gonna gas out. And so it's like every play our goal, like when I got finished playing, I could have maybe gone and played overseas. I had some options, but I felt like I had done everything I could to give myself the best opportunity to be the player I could become. And I didn't really have a whole lot left undone. And I feel like with our guys, if we can accomplish that for them, then when they get finished here, they can, whether it's into the season or into their career, they can turn the page. I think so many guys can't turn the page because they don't do that. They don't make the sacrifices when they're playing. They don't. I tell them, hey, like it was to get into play. For me, getting to play, it was very lonely. There was summers missed. There were holidays missed. There were breaks missed. There was a lot of stuff I had. There were social events. There were proms missed. There was spring breaks missed. Like all that stuff, I had to be willing to sacrifice because of my limitations if I was going to have any opportunity to reach my ceiling. And so, we have guys that have a much higher ceiling than I ever had, and I want them to experience that because it does create some of your greatest moments. But also, when I'm done, I don't look back and go, man, if I would have just committed a little more time here. It's like, no, I literally gassed out. I made sacrifices. I did what you have to do. And you know what? It was good enough to get me here. Could it get me to the pinnacle of where I wanted to go? No, but that's okay. At some point, physical limitations come in. At some point, my ceiling is reached and I'm good. But as long as I built that house, I always tell our guys, some guys' ceiling can give them a 2 or 3 story house. Mine was probably a 1-story house, but I built it and I lived in it and I was good. And once it was time to move out, I could move out because I had invested everything I needed to invest. And that's kind of what we want for them for each season, so that you're done and you're like, all right, coach, I'm good. I'm moving on. We're good. And so, we talk a ton about that and about just what that looks like, what that means, and try to remind them, of that.
Coach, that's so good. I don't think I've ever heard another play or former player, because that's you coach, but former player talk about it like that. And I think you and our stories are very similar. Even though you were a better player, the idea of maxing out what we had, like I tell my players all the time, athletically, that level was too high for me.
Yeah,
it was too good. They were too fast, too strong, too long. So what I could do in high school really didn't translate, but I had to find a new path.
100%.
And so
had to find a niche, and that's what I said. Like, find your niche. Like I averaged 30-some points a game in high school. I wasn't doing that in the Big 12, and
No.
that's fine. And I was, again, self-aware enough
Yeah.
to know if I'm going to make it, I better find a niche. And so, especially as a freshman, I was on a team with pros, with Jason Sasser and Tony Petit, and guys, I wasn't like, it was a joke in the weight room what I was doing compared to what they were doing, and on the field, I wasn't gonna. So I had to create something that made me valuable.
Yeah.
And if I didn't recognize that, and I tried to be who I was in high school, I'd have been a fool. Like that wasn't going to happen. And so I tell our guys, it's no levels are levels. It's all relative. Like create your niche, force us to play you because you bring a value that you see we need. Recognize, be aware, study, see what we're doing, what are we talking about constantly, adapt that, you do that, because again, I was saying nobody's ever scored a point from the bench. So your goal is to get on the floor. Yeah. Figure that out. What niche can you bring that will give you that opportunity? And so, we talk again at nauseam about that. We talk about and I'll go through these quick. But the second one is communication, which again, that's nothing. But to us, it's more about open and honest conversations. Like if you're fraudulent with your conversations, if you're telling me what you think we need to hear, if you're just speaking words to be spoken, that doesn't work. That's not real. Like we want to have real relationships. We want to have real conversations. We want to be able to talk to you in a way that's not robotic and scripted. And like, no, we kind of throw that stuff out the window, and we try to open a channel for, again, it's not even like harsh conversation. It's just real conversation, just real people having run. Sometimes, you know what, there's nothing to talk about. It's fine. You don't have to. I think when you organic or when you script events or you script too many, it becomes fake. It becomes fraudulent. I want organically for things to happen and for conversations to flow and for people to be able to, but also to have difficult conversations, whether it's with the coach, whether it's player and player, like be okay with that and understand like that's part of a team becoming a real team, as opposed to these families and this stuff is like, that's fine, but like most functional families are able to have tough real conversations. It's the dysfunctional families are the ones that operate with that level of like ambiguity where there's not clarity. And so we try to have real, whether we're coaching, we try to be honest and have, again, difficult conversations on what we see. We're not going to try to mask it if we see something, and we want, but we're also going to be honest with our praise and our like we want to be, again, to our best of our ability, as real as we can be. So the third one's trust. Just building trust amongst each other, being a person of your. Say you're going to do something, do it. And I'm going to do that. If I tell you I'm going to be up here to open the gym, I'm going to do it. If I tell you I'm going to meet you, I'll get you a tutor for stuff. We're going to do it. So do the same. And do it with your teammate. And do it do it that day, and then put it on repeat, and do it the next day, and do it the next day, and do it the next day. Response is a big one too. And that's kind of a Viktor Frankl, The Man's Search for Meaning, where I don't know if you're familiar with that, but he talks a ton about he was a survivor of Auschwitz, and talks about came up with the idea of this. It's called logotherapy, but came up with the idea of stimulus versus response, and in between those two, kind of dictates your life. There's a stimulus that's going to happen to you every day. How you respond dictates what's going to happen next to you. So we talk to our guys all the time of like managing that space in between, whether it's a bad call, whether it's you're not playing, whether it's you didn't get an open pass, you thought you were open, you didn't get it, whether you hit a shot, whether you make a big play, like there's always that. So can you manage that and then respond appropriately? You know what I mean? Like, and that's something that we will point out, we will talk about, we will speak ad nauseum about, is that stimulus response, and making sure we crush it, we recognize it when we are successful with it, we applaud it. When we aren't, we work on it. And as a coach, like I got to be accountable to it, right? Like I got to understand when we're losing these games back to back, how am I managing? How's my response? How am I managing that space in my head to make sure that I'm responding in a way that gives us a chance to be successful? And then the last one is self-awareness. And that's the idea. I think that's as important as any of them, because if you're not self-aware, basically, if you can't get over yourself and remove your ego, you cannot grow as a person. And if you can't grow as a person off the court, then there's no way we can coach you. You know what I mean? Like if you're not self-aware to know this and this is what's happening, this is who I am. Um, first of all, you're not gonna be that much fun to have around. If you can't get over yourself and you take yourself too serious. But more important, I mean, as important, like we can't. You're not going to change. Like
Yeah.
a person that lacks in self awareness kind of stays who they are because they're not willing to accept good and bad about what what they are as a person. And it's our job, one of our jobs, to kind of help them grow and see that and have conversations with them all the time about that and recognizing insecurities and recognizing things that may be limiting them from being. Maybe there's a fear of a failure, there's a fear of pain, there's a fear of getting tired, and like don't create a mirage or a reason why you didn't make that line or why you didn't get to the help. Like no, you didn't do it because this is what is going on with you and this is what we got to fix.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I've seen guys who have been great about it, who understand. And we've seen guys who just struggle, and it's hard because it's hard to change those behaviors that would make them better here, but then also is going to help them when they leave. I think that's as important as any of it.
Coach, I love the flow of that culture. Culture is a buzzword that I think more and more people are struggling just to even use. And
Yeah.
Former coach at Birdville, Coach Fitch, who had done it for 30 years,
Yeah.
he said, "Man, we never used that word before,
Right.
but it's just so your standards, the pillars, the way that you show up." TJ Rosine over at Emmanuel College says that self-awareness is a superpower.
Yeah.
And so I think he's right on the money, but the fact that ends your culture, but you're right, it will really shape the rest of those words that you used.
Yeah. Because I don't think you can reach any of them. I don't think a lot of that stuff can happen if I'm not self-aware as a coach, and that's what I think I'm pretty. I think I'm fortunate right now in that like I have one assistant, and he's terrific, and he works extremely. He fits that. He works hard, doesn't take himself too serious, is self-aware to know his good, his bad. So we can sit here, and our relationship is so healthy and so real because we both understand our flaws. And he can call me when I'm being ridiculous on something, and I can do the same. But we're both striving toward the same thing. But we're both aware that there's areas of strength, areas of weakness, and we're in alignment with that. And I think when you have that, it trickles down with your players because they see it and they recognize kind of how we conduct ourselves, and it allows us to recruit. Again, you can see that in recruiting when you're talking to a player, when you're watching them play, when you talk to parents and you hear expectations and you hear kind of where they think they are and where they think what they can do. And you can pick up so many things just off when a kid visits campus and a player visits campus and you're walking around and the conversation you have, like you can realize, okay, this guy may struggle because he doesn't quite get it. Like he's not understanding this, and this could be something that we can work with, or this may be something that it will fit somewhere and it'll be good somewhere. It's just we put so much stock into that it's just not gonna fit here.
Yeah. So, Coach, I was at the Gasso they have this new camp. It's called Link Camp. And it's a really cool idea. They just had one a few weeks ago. It's where college coaches, parents, and players are all in the gym together and
Right.
can ask questions and talk, practice, scrimmage some. But the Kilgore Junior College was talking to parents, and he had just had this great nugget. He said, players, you got to find the level that loves you, the one that's interested in you, and then find a way to love it back.
Yeah, it's good.
And that's good. So my question to you is, what advice do you have, or can you give to coaches that have players that want to play in college, but the self-awareness, either it's with them or it's with their parents, there's a disconnect. How do we help them to see without, I even try to tell personal stories of guys, listen, 47 seconds against SMU. Play, like
Hmm.
really cool that I played D1
Yeah.
ball, but like,
Yeah.
how can we help them?
I think testimonials are good. I mean, again, I've gone down that road myself a lot when freshmen were struggling once they get here. But I think that's tough, coach, because I've had coaches from the area ask me that same question, and I think they've always done that. I think has been good has been bringing they've brought them out to games, and they've let them see with their own eyes kind of what is going on here at Concordia when we're playing anybody, Maryland, Baylor, UT Dallas. They come and see that, and they may not want to say it out loud, but they can see the quality and the level, and it makes it real to them. And I just think seeing it in person is so important. I think it allows them to have some perspective and to understand that just the opportunity to play college basketball in itself is an achievement. And you have to have so many things go right for you. Like I had tremendous advantage. I didn't have physical advantages, but I had environmental advantages. I grew up in a gym. I grew up with my dad as a coach. I grew up on a bench where I was watching all the good and bad and learning how to act, how not to act. And I wasn't great at it. I was still like temperamental and not always considerate, but I learned how to work and people don't get that. And so like to be able to, get, it's so hard to do it and to get it that just getting recognized is special. But again, it's almost like a bad relationship, right? Like you can tell them, but until you go through it, it's hard because I always say like I always feel like when I talk at those events, I'm talking to everybody except that parent and their kid. You know what I mean? Like so they're here like everybody in there has the same mindset. Well, he's talking to the person next to me. He's not talking to me. And so it's like I don't know how to break that down besides come see us play and realize that we have pretty good players and that we're playing pretty good. We're playing against good players.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of I think it helps sometimes when you have high school players who are consistently playing against high level competition and can see, okay, that guy's clearly better than me.
That's a good point. Yeah,
they can see, well, okay, that guy, that's De'Aaron Fox. Okay, yeah, he's different than I am. That's Carson Edwards. You can start seeing some of that stuff. But again, I think so much of that is parental. I think a lot of it is being talked to by coaches at a young level. That's the hard part, right? By the time you get them and you're really, really working with them, you can still make impressions, you can still build, but also, it's kind of, some of it is who they are. And so getting people to understand that and accept that isn't always easy. But I think, Texas, I think the Gasso guys, like you talked about, Blue and those guys, and Sam, and they're terrific. They're really they're trying to stretch it. They're trying to in Texas. You go to the Northeast, and like I'm talking Division III, and you're again Andre Cook at St. Ed's. He played Division III basketball at Skidmore, and he always says up there, man, it's like if you tell somebody they're a Division III player, it's like, wow, that's really. You must be a good player. And in Texas, it's almost like a slap in the face. Or it has been in the past, and that's just the reality. And so it's changing that mindset. And again, I think when you have people like the Gasso guys who are getting coaches in front of these parents, and just I think a lot of it, honestly, Coach, is just I don't even think it's intentional. It's just lack of exposure, lack of familiarity. Anytime you're not familiar with something, you're not comfortable with it, and so I think just getting more familiar with the levels and understanding what it takes to play Division II, Division III, NAI, junior, Division I, like what that looks like. And those lower levels are a lot of times skipped just because, and I get it. Everybody's dream is to play Division I. I don't fault anybody for that. Like clearly that's that's the goal, but it's also at some point, again, self-awareness, being able to recognize like this is probably where I'm going to be. And like Coach Kilgore said, fall in love with it. If
Yeah.
somebody loves you, you better love them back or you're going to be single your whole life, you
Going
know?
That's good. Going back to your very first pillar though, and the story that you had, and we kind of already talked about it, but I think a lot of those players too, obvious, like you had said, there are parts to life that's unfair. And,
Mhm.
and what, like
Yeah.
Dick DeVenzio said, that to desire fair treatment is to desire to be mediocre. And so, but so there's a part of those higher levels where your height, your wingspan, your
Yeah.
ability. I told my players about TJ Ford the other day, and because we were talking about the next level, and if you're 6 foot or under, you got to be a little bit of a freak in some
Yes.
ways. And I said,
Yes.
guys, the one of the few times I've been on ESPN is because I was on the floor when TJ Ford dunked it on a putback.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his elbow was at
Yeah.
the rim.
Yeah.
So coach, you'll laugh at this. I go and I find that video on YouTube. And so I get that, but then I watch just the next clip. Well, man, coach, I got the ball. I'm dribbling down the sideline. I turn it over and I get scored on. The very next clip, I'm driving baseline and I get my shot blocked into the fifth row. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the crap? Like, who put
Yeah.
this together? But that's my experience right there
Yeah.
in a
No,
nutshell,
yeah.
you
And
know. But so I'm
you're
talking to these guys, and like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you
no,
off,
you're
but
good.
it's some of the guys that, beside, if they don't just have the physical limitations, I believe the reason they don't get to the level that they want, or it just doesn't work out, is they don't max out. They
Yeah.
don't do everything. They do look back, because coach, I'll just be honest with you. You're the first person that's ever talked about their high school playing career and college. And I thought, I feel the exact same way. I've
Yeah.
screwed up a ton in my life. My 20s were a train wreck.
Yeah.
But the one thing I don't regret is how I trained for the game,
Yep.
because I don't
Yep.
belong at that level, but you can get there if you are lonely,
Yep.
give up everything, sacrifice, and have no regrets. And I think but maybe
But
that's
it
why we
it's hard.
we got
It's
there.
hard. It's hard. Like again, I didn't take a vacation like from my freshman year of high school till I was done playing,
Yeah.
and I didn't go on trips. I'd work 6 days a week. I'd take one day off a week, and that was it. And that was for 8 years. And again, I'm not saying that's the way to do it.
Well,
Probably would have been a better balance, maybe in
well,
my life.
no, coach, I'm going to push back on that. Like, I don't, for the goals that you had to achieve
Yeah,
those, coach, I don't think you have balance.
yeah.
I think you
You
have to
don't.
be all in.
Again, unless you are an athletic,
Sure.
talented freak that can just do it, like you, yeah, it's not. And again, it's not for everybody.
And that's the thing too. I want to address, even though you and I are talking about how it's possible and how you can do it, it's not for everybody, and that is okay. Like, it
exactly.
is okay as a high school player to not want
Yes. Yes.
that highest level.
Yes. Yes.
It's fine, but
Right.
don't wish,
Exactly.
don't
Exactly.
regret, don't sit
Yeah.
around asking poor me why, when you
Right.
take 3 weeks of vacation
Exactly.
during the summer. I never skied. I never skied
No,
because I was terrified of hurting my knees. Coach,
coach,
like, you got to be that insane.
coach, I was so ridiculous that I, in college, literally made my roommates get rid of their gaming system because I didn't want to walk in because I felt like a video game and my eyes would mess up my jump shot. Like I was that obsessive with like being so tunnel visioned into making sure everything I did aligned with giving myself an opportunity. And so again,
That's extreme.
that's extreme. No, I'm telling you, and I said some of it wasn't healthy, probably, but there was such a yeah. I wasn't going water skiing. I've been to like 2 theme parks in my life. I didn't have a whole lot of layers to what I was doing because I was so and it got ingrained in me. My dad was a coach, and he always talked about it's got to be an obsession, not a hobby. I had an older cousin who's coaching, who does a lot of these individual camps now, Coach V, and I grew up with him, and he was, all about working. So I had good people around me to help me understand that mindset. But again, it's not, and that's what we tell our guys, and it's okay. Exactly. It's okay. I'm not saying you have to do that. That doesn't have to be your life. But again, be self-aware and set realistic expectations based on what you're willing to put in. And if you're not willing to do it, don't be that person that is griping because they didn't get out, but they didn't put in. It's not and that's where I tell my guys, I don't have sympathy for those people because I've been that person. And so I'm not gonna feel for you. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you you deserve this and this, because I know from my own personal life what I had to give up to get to a level that, not many people, and to have a moderate level of success at that level, to be able to be on the floor with like you said, guys I had no business being on the floor with. I mean, you ask guys that, I remember some of the, when I showed up at the Tech Rec Center as a freshman, I remember some of the guys later telling me, like Darvin Ham and Corey, some of those guys saying, man, this is Mr. Basketball. I walked in, I'm 185 pounds.
Coach, my mom called me one time as my freshman or sophomore year because the message boards were starting to come out, online. And I had played up at the Student Life Center.
Yeah.
And on the message boards, people that had played against me that day said, this guy is on our team.
Right.
And my mom called me and said, hey, what are you doing at the rec that makes people think you can't play there? She was so
just say, Mom, I'm just playing my game.
I'm kind of just up there to have fun. And I got this bullseye target, but you're right, man. You're exactly right.
So, yeah, no, again, ultimately it goes back to, it helped shape me now, because as a coach, I try to have that, that same mindset with a little more obvious perspective. But one thing, I try to pass that, what we're talking about, onto our players.
Yes.
And just try to get them to wrap it. It's nothing better than when a guy gets finished. And they do have a chance to go play professionally. We've had a couple that have had an opportunity that are still pursuing it, and that's great. And the ones that don't, it's like, no, I'm ready to move on and do this and this. And it's like, man, that's a win, because you're not drifting, you're not holding on to something that's not there to hold on to. You're moving on, and that is a good feeling as a coach, to know you helped somebody reach that and be okay with where they're going next.
And we can't put our expectations on the players either.
No.
Just because I see that this kid has ability, athletically or skill-wise, he has a drive, a love, and a passion, and I believe that he could play. My first thought goes to the best player that our school's ever had. His name was Dalton Standish. He graduated 5 years ago, 2,700 points, 435 threes over his career. Just a machine, averaged 28 for 2 years in a row. But after his sophomore year, I asked, hey, Dalton, let's start thinking about this. And he said, Coach, I don't want to play in college. And my heart kind of paused, why are you, in my head, I'm thinking, you work so hard. He gave up what we gave up. And I said, well, Dalton, why are you doing everything that you do? He's like, I just want to be a great high school player. That's all I want to do. And I had to accept that. And then, but what it turned into was extreme respect for that, because it's pure, instead of a carrot dangling out in front. It's pure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.